front of this assembly, which will be both city bonds and school bonds, is the MP3 recording. Okay, let's start with Julia. We can just go around with the names of everybody here.
Julia Tucker, Assembly Council. Harriet Drummond in absentia.
Okay.
Debbie Ozian.
Ernie Hall. Paul's in absentia. Elvis in absentia. Dick Trainey's here.
Jennifer Johnson.
Chris Birch.
Cynthia Weed, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Yay!
Good.
Cynthia's the bond council.
Well, as we start this, Mr. Mayor, do you want to go over the bonds just in general the city has coming forward? I think you said, what, 3 or a few more?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We didn't make a separate handout. I just assumed everybody had their capital improvement budget with them, but we can summarize real quickly. Ours, of course, has been just recently approved by the Assembly in the budget, so I think everybody's pretty familiar with what we're talking about. We've got 5 bond proposals. The Anchorage Parks bond is $3 million. The ARDSA bond is $30,850,000. We've got a public transit bond for $941,000. We've got a fire bond for $1.15 million and a police bond for $250,000. There is some operating and maintenance costs with each of those, and we've got a breakdown as well if you want to know more about, like in the park bonds, just what's comprised in that, and we can update you on that. But so our portion really is just a recap of what we just did in the budget, and I think everybody had great input and participation in that. So I think the ones that we haven't really had a good briefing on is probably the school district. I know they're here to tell us about the school bonds and get into more detail with their bonds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions from Assembly members on the city bonds? That was easy, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks.
The scriptures are only hopes theirs go that fast. Carol.
Yes.
Why don't you join us, ma'am? Anybody that you've got with you want to bring to the table, bring them on up. You guys have handouts from the school district on bonds?
We have the memorandum that's coming to you, so
Okay.
get you that. It's on you guys, I'm not so much about
By the way, there's food here in the back room, so please go and eat it. Get it, eat it. Thank you. She doesn't want to say it louder, but in our books that are back here, it's listed the bonds that are in here. It's on page 3 of the agenda in your books. Thank you. So Carol, do you want to go through your bonds and then we'll open it for questions? That way we're not interfering as you go through the bonds.
Sure, I'm going to make a few remarks, and then I've got my key facilities staff and assistant superintendent to talk in detail, and John Steiner, our school board president, should be here. I know he's wanting to come, so. And I've got my chief financial officer. Why don't you just come on up here? That can answer.
We'll fight, I promise.
Yeah. So I appreciate the time. I'm Carol Como, superintendent, for the record. We are recommending to you for the public hearing, I believe, on February 1st, 3 bond propositions. In the memorandum, there's a kind of history of how we got to the 3. And so we can answer any specific questions. But basically, the first proposal, Proposition 1, for $37,132,000, is to complete the renovation and renewal of Service High School. And it's in 3 different parts. And so I think this one is probably going to take the most discussion. But we did receive a grant from the legislature last year, and the governor signed off on it for $21 million, but it requires a $9 million match, which is listed there, Service High School Renewal, the grant participating share. We have got in here $28 million to complete the renewal, and for those 2 totals is $37 million. Along with that, we are asking to redirect previously authorized but not sold bonds for $10 million. So those have been authorized in a prior bond proposal. We've never sold those bonds, and we would like to get voter approval to redirect them towards this Service High School project. And that's kind of laid out in the first paragraph. We do, this project, with the exception of the debt reimbursement, does qualify, we believe, for 60% debt reimbursement. The $21 million is the state's share already. So we believe that bringing this whole project forward is a good value for the voters. We think that the Service High School continues to be our #1 project. It will completely finish the renovation and renewal of the school and allow us to move on to other very necessary projects. The second proposal, Proposition 2 here, is $16,865,000. Basically to further design projects and some educational capital improvement facility building life extension. We're really, as we get more and more schools aging, we need to really invest and renew our schools. Those of you that have been to Sand Lake and Chester Valley realize what a great thing happens to an old school when they can be completely renovated. They are then operational as almost brand new schools and really enhance the teaching and learning environment. That package is $16,865,000, and we believe that that will be subject to debt reimbursement at the 70% level for those facility building life extension projects. The career and technical education and vocational education facility upgrades, the school board wanted that as a separate proposal rather than combined. And so this is the third proposition. I think many of you know that we have the school board at their direction and also just working with the labor and workforce development commissions in the state, as well as really listening to the community, that we've got to enhance our opportunities for young people in the whole area of career and technical education. Many, many years ago in the mid-'80s, that across the country, the old vocational education that some of us remember, they really dismantled all the facilities across the country. And in the last few years, there's been a lot of effort to really move forward with career and technical education / voc ed courses that are really helping young people who either want to go or don't want to go to college, but really pursue career paths that don't necessarily require college education. And we feel this is a reasonable proposal to renovate space within our middle schools and our high schools to be able to offer other opportunities for our young people that the facilities just don't allow right now. So the school board did put that proposal forward at $17 million separately, and it is also subject, we believe, to probably 60% debt reimbursement, depending on the project. So those are basically.
Debbie, for you.
Two questions, actually. So I saw you originally proposed 2, and the second one you proposed was the combination of what's now 2 and 3. Is that right? So you originally proposed 31 mil?
Yes, the administration reduced the recommendation from our community committee.
I saw that part.
Down to 2 proposals.
Yeah.
And then the board, after fully discussing it, separated the career tech out, and so they wanted 3
Is the total value of that?
Correct, it's the same, they simply
It's the same?
separated them out.
Okay, and then my second question is, on the career tech, could you amplify that a little bit? I got a caller who said that this was building a new facility at West. That's what I was told.
No, it's not. This is really looking at, and I think if you look on page 5, there's a brief paragraph, and we certainly can talk further. It's really to look at all of our middle schools and all of our high schools to see what space that's currently within the buildings, some slight modifications, and to be able to enhance that. West and Romig have a master plan, and this will begin to look at some of their career tech spaces, but this is not.
It's not building any new building necessarily.
No,
It's
no.
renovating existing space.
Am I correct there?
It will be on a different piece of ground than the existing building is. So it will be a separate structure, but it will ultimately be, that'll be its near-term use. It'll ultimately be incorporated into the renewed West Roman campus when that larger project takes place over the next 5 to 25 years.
Okay, I'd like a little more breakdown on that particular bond, so I understand that a little better. at
That's
some
a
point.
$1.2 million piece of the design chunk associated with Proposition 2.
So out of the 17, 1.2 would be to build this new facility, a new building that will eventually be part of the West.
No, everything's right, except
Okay,
it's now
right.
part of the Proposition 2. Of the 16.865, 1.2 million of that is for the design of that structure.
Okay, so it's not in tech at all,
No, it's in the design piece.
and it's just a portion of the West Roman remodel that is in that.
Correct, just that. That is the only piece of the West Roaming project that is in the bond, any of the bonds.
Ms. Osiander, on page 6, and I should have referred you that, there's another paragraph that briefly describes that piece.
That design piece that totals, I believe, 5.1 million includes design money for Girdwood, Inlet View, Gladys Wood, Airport Heights, and this West Roaming
Well,
element.
the reason I brought it up is there are some people who've talked to me in the community that are fairly critical of that design because of the size.
Okay,
And so that's nothing that the Assembly has ever discussed. I know the school board has adopted it. But I guess I want to try to figure out how much we're committing to it then if we go ahead and put some money in it before, you know, if the whole thing is fairly controversial, I'd like to have people an opportunity to weigh into it at a broader sense before we commit money.
and this,
And I-
the CT&E piece that's included in the bond right now is a standalone element. If the West Roaming project never goes any further, the major renewal of the West Roaming campus never goes any further, this CT&E piece will still be utilized for CT&E purposes by both campuses going forward. So it was designed specifically so that it does not commit the community to the larger renewal of West and Roaming schools.
Is there some way I could get like a little drawing or schematic?
Yes.
So if I've got one particular person who's
Yeah,
really
we can
followed
definitely
this.
get that to you, and we did this purposefully for basically the questions you're raising, because we do know there has been no discussion, full discussion on that master plan with the Assembly. We also know that it has been adopted by the school board, but there's a lot of question about its future, so we
There's
can
some
get that to
community
you.
controversy on that
Correct.
site.
But we
Absolutely.
definitely know the CT&E that for West and Roaming is not controversial. Everybody knows that every one of our middle schools and high schools, those students really can benefit from this regardless of that master
Can
plan.
I ask one more? Or do you
Yes,
wanna-
and then I got 4 others. Go ahead.
Well, I can wait.
No, it's all right. Go
All
ahead.
right. The other designs, I don't have the CIP in front of me. When are you anticipating construction for those other designs? Because I basically don't like to have too big a window between the design and the construction anticipated date.
Girdwood would be available for construction funding in 2012.
Okay. And how about Inlet View,
I believe,
Gladys
Mike,
Wood,
that's
and
true of
Airport
Inlet
Heights?
View and Gladys Wood as well? That's correct, and
So-
Airport Heights.
So we're assuming a construction bond of some significant size on those.
On 2012 or 13. We believe the designs would be valid, would be useful at full value without any requirement for additional design work if they were funded in 2012 or 13, and possibly longer, but
So that
certainly not.
bond is fairly, the 2012, you're assuming like what,
Girdwood. At this
no,
point.
dollar, about how much? Like, is that
I
about
believe-
80 million or 60 million? Or to fund 3 elementary schools?
If all 3 of the elementary schools plus Girdwood were
Goes.
funded, it would be $70 million.
70 or 80 mil?
I
Is that
believe
what
so.
you said?
Yeah,
Offset by the debt reimbursement.
but that at this point, that is not necessarily the recommendation of the administration, and certainly not yet of the board, that would be the funding request for those years.
Yeah, but they're somewhat linked. I mean, if you get,
We hope so.
if you get the design, you're kind of assuming you're going to build it.
In the next year or two, we would come forward with a request for funds.
Thank you, ma'am. Elby, you're next, and then I got 5 others. Elby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Como, did I hear you say that originally the community proposed having Prop 2 and 3 as one bond?
No, on page 4, our Capital Request Advisory Committee spends months talking about our capital needs year-round, and they recommended 2 different proposals, bond 1 and 2. And then that came over to our administrative team. We reduced it, number 1, and then we took out some things and we repackaged it in our administrative recommendation, which still was 2 packages, but they weren't the same 2. And that's on page.
Right, I can find
Okay,
it,
and
that's all
then
great.
the board then decided they wanted 3 propositions instead of 2.
Right.
So it's gone through many iterations.
And I believe that. But the only reason why I'm asking the question is because I believe that maybe all of us got an email from someone in the community, I don't know if he's one personal constituent or not, who had some concerns over the Prop 2 and Prop 3 being separate, and even talked about the fact that the city may want to consider combining them. And my response to him was that I believe that the school district had probably done their homework and felt that this was a better way to present the bond proposition to the public. So with that said,
Well, I appreciate that. Our board, and certainly any of them can speak for their reasoning for separating it out, but we're comfortable with what is here. Our experience is that when we make a recommendation, it gets vetted again with the board, and input was given through the community and so forth, and there were mixed opinions, but we're comfortable with the 3 propositions and have to, I think, respect the ideas the board had, but I know there are people here that would probably be happy to respond about that.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie?
3 questions. The first, if I'm following what you're telling me correctly, the total cost of Service High would be about $68 million on that project? Correct. Okay. Okay. I'm curious, and this came up in a community council meeting last night, the $17 million for career tech. Is that putting wood shops back in high schools? I understand this to be totally different type of labs that are going into the schools.
That's correct. It is, there's a little bit of applied technology.
Right.
But that is not the wood shop that you and I remember from the sort of the high school experience of the late 20th century.
Right. That's going to be an important message to get out. People need to understand what they're voting for in that career tech, and I think it will carry very well going that. They're really concerned about wood shops going back into high schools.
No, I agree, and Mr. Hall, I think it's really important that we're going to
Yeah,
work
I kind of like wood shops.
with Rick Rios and the Career Technical Education Advisory Committee to help us get that message out so people are very clear. This is 21st century career technical education, not what some of us all remember.
Okay, and my final question is, if all 3 pass, what will that do to total bond debt for the school district, okay, with what you've paid down? I know we're striving to try, with whatever bonds we do, to continue to lower our total bond debt. Will this, with what's been paid off, will this increase or decrease where we're at in regards to total bond debt for the school district?
Well, it will increase the total bond debt for the school district. The annual debt and principal payments would be just about $5.7 million a year. There's an average of about 54% debt reimbursement from the state for that portion. So the taxpayers would see 46% of that.
But our overall outstanding debt would be, since the last time bonds were approved in April of 2008, we will, between then and the April of 2011, we will have paid off $150 million of principal. We're proposing to add $70 million to that with the package of propositions that's before you.
That's my question. You've paid off $150 million and you're looking at another 70.
Hey,
But the $150 million is 2 years.
annual basis, it's 57.
We've described that on page 2.
Any notes, Ernie?
No.
Harriet?
I don't think,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right.
I was going to observe that West High School had a science wing added a number of years ago, and this career vocational technology component will be sort of like that. Not knowing what the design proposal even begins to look like, West has had all kinds of things hung on it in Christmas tree fashion over the decades, and that's what I'm envisioning.
I think it might be something like that. Probably describe it better than any of us.
Well, the initial concept is to integrate it within the existing structure so it's fully functional, even if the future master plan would not move forward. And it's also conceptually identified in a location that if the future project goes forward in part or in total, it can be fully integrated too. So it's complementary to the existing building and any future additions or modifications.
And that it would be fully accessible from both the middle school and the high school
side.
The vision is that it would be used by both programs.
Very good. And I'm assuming that once the assembly decides how it's going to handle these packages, that the school district will come forward with a full set of descriptions for the voters for an education campaign.
Yes, we always put together and have it approved by bound council, and we work through it to make sure it's strictly information. But yes, we will be doing that depending on what you all approve to put on the ballot from now until the election.
So, for example, for the for the CTBE, I have to get my mouth around the acronym. So for the CTBE bond package, there'll be a description of 18 different projects and a value assigned to each one of those, like West's 1.2 million.
It'll be an approximate amount because, as you know, we think it's going to cost that, but within the total package, there'll be estimates. But certainly the detail of each of what we envision at each school, so people will know what could be coming to their school.
Okay, great. I think it might be valuable for assembly members to know this before we have to make the decision. A little more detail than is in this document.
Thank you, Harriet. Jennifer?
Couple questions. One was back as far as the retiring of bond. And in the 52 million, as we're retiring, the state pays their part of it annually, right? So the 55% of the 52 million is paid by the state, and the rest is paid by the taxpayer. Is that right? As far as service, and you know I'm very, very nervous about this, for the same reason I was very, very nervous about it last year. And I can understand why you're trying to make the whole thing whole and do it at once. Did you look into just doing the 9 million matching fund and the 10 million as far as bonds that are already schools that are getting sold, and not doing the 28 million?
We did. We spent lots of hours talking about this. We listened to the people at Service, and Lou's here if you want to ask them any specifics, but I will tell you that we all agreed that it was really important to complete the Service High School project once and for all. We believe it's needed, that it's not just the auditorium, it's truly finishing the renovation of that facility so that we can move on to the other projects. And so we had a lot of discussion and debate, but we don't believe coming back again another year for more for Service is the right thing to do. We feel it's important to get it out there. We think we can make a good case for it. I know the community there feels very strongly that their facility needs to be renovated. So we just felt it was time to bring the whole thing forward. And the fact, I will just be honest with you, the fact that there's not a high school or any other kind of auditorium south of Northern Lights Boulevard is a very important piece of information, I think, for this community, because as some of the parents testified, have a very difficult time with their very strong fine arts, drama, choir, and band being able to have any kind of a performance, because they have to work around East, Bartlett, West auditoriums schedules, which are fully occupied too. And so that was another piece of it. We just believe that this can help not just service, but it can help the other South End schools with their
Well,
performing
and
arts
I know
programs.
this year you have done a poll.
Mhm.
And I know the last time you did a poll, what was this poll as far as the service bonds?
Could we have a copy of it?
Sure, we can get that to you, yeah.
Because last year, they passed 2 with the poll, right?
Right, and we all know when a poll's taken in December, and then the election's not till April, things happen. And when talking to Mr. Dittman, who did the poll last year, the information was right up to 2 weeks before the election that the bonds were gonna pass, 2 years ago, and then we didn't have any last year, and then they didn't. So it was the best information at that point, but I think we can make a case. We can definitely get you the poll results. And
And there will be the school bond yes movement.
Correct.
And you are going to be full court press or somebody.
yes, we are. Service High School parents, and where to go. There he is. But yes, there are a number of people in the community that have already said that they're wanting to be actively involved in advocating for the bonds.
Chris?
I would like to see it happen, right?
I know.
My neighborhood is code of service, some of mine.
Well, no, it's
Yours
in
goes-
LB
LB.
Oh, yeah.
district.
When we met with the school board and the assembly met, we talked about actually the year-over-year decline in enrollment from last year to this year and the year before to last year in students, and then tried to get a kind of an understanding on how students are allocated through the city. In other words, do we have excess capacity in some parts of the city and you know, lots of temporary classrooms in other parts. And I guess it would still be helpful for me to see at some point in time, and I think you had indicated that that was something you could gather up if I remember the discussion. It would be helpful to see kind of a resource base. We've got capacity for this many total students in across the district. And I just don't know what the total, if you're in the hotel business, you're counting beds, you can add up beds. And I just don't know what the total number of slots are for students and how that compares to the total demand we have for those slots in the Anchorage population, and whether it's a matter of readjusting boundaries, which can be painful, understandably. But obviously it's is it possible to better utilize our facilities, I guess is.
Well, they're in our 10-year CIP that you have last year's. We gave you all a copy of that. That's the most current, but we are in the process of getting that new one that'll be coming to the board and the Planning and Zoning Commission at the end of February, 1st of March, and we'll certainly be happy to get that to you again. One of the things that's very difficult with our capacity issue is you look at the sheer number of students in a school, but then that doesn't take into consideration that some students need smaller classrooms for special education services or other supportive services. So maybe 5 or 6 students with a lot of equipment, 2 or 3 teacher aides that are delivering service in a classroom. And so it's different than just thinking in terms of the number of students in the school and the number of classrooms. And so, but in that 10-year CIP, there is a chart that shows how many classrooms are in the building, how many relocatables are on the site, what they're all used for. And so that some of our schools still don't have a multipurpose room and a gymnasium, and so they're using a classroom, sometimes if they have one, or a relocatable for, say, their music program. So that's all in that 10-year CIP, and we can certainly, we'll be providing those again when they're updated. But I think it's the 1st of March, they have to be sent over to you.
Thanks. Chris, thank you. Debbie?
I need to clarify a little bit more 2 things we've just already talked about. All right, so the Capital Advisory Group recommended about 101 mil. And then you made a recommendation, and then the board came up with 70.9. What did you recommend?
I think we recommended the same total. They
The
simply pulled,
70.9.
they pulled
Okay,
the
I just wanted to be
CT&E.
sure, because I couldn't find.
The board
Oh,
added
that's right. They added, that's
600,000
right.
to the administration's proposal
For
to enlarge the design increment for the West Romig
that's right.
Career Technical Vocational Education.
Okay, I would like a copy of Carol's original to the board,
Okay.
if I could get that.
Yep.
All right, the second thing I wanted to clarify was the question Ernie asked. Basically, if I heard Lucinda correctly, you're retiring about 57 mil a year, and this is making a 70 mil. So this is actually an increase in debt.
What I was telling you before
I
was
wanna
the
hear
amount
both
of
of
debt retired since the last time voters approved bonds.
Yeah, but it's more relevant to me to do an annual, frankly. So
Okay, well, yes, it's a roughly 50 to 55 million per year.
Okay, Lucinda, did you want to make a comment?
No, that's exactly correct.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure Ernie's question was answered in regard to the annual.
All right, well, I thought I got it, but I wanted to make it real crystal clear. All right, because philosophically, there's a number of people on the assembly who've talked about keeping the bonded debt at roughly the same level every single year, which would be about the 50 or 60 annually. And so I just want to keep that in my mind in comparison with this discussion, frankly.
But we've
Well,
reduced, the
thank you.
school district has reduced its debt dramatically over the last 3 years because we
Because
haven't
bonds haven't
added
been
any new
approved.
bonds to
And we
it.
didn't bring any last year.
So-
No, I know that.
So you're right, there would be essentially a level or slight uptick if.
No, I got that,
if
Mike.
these for 2011, but in 2009 and 10, it would have been a dramatic decline.
Yeah, well, frankly, one of my concerns is the following year with all the elementary schools in there. So I'm just trying to think it all through, so thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Paul?
Yes, first on the CVTE over on the West Roman campus. Is this something that students will bus to, just like they do at King Career Center, similar to King Career Center?
No, this would be for the students of West Romig. If a student had wanted a zone exception to go to West Romig, they could certainly do that. But our hope is to get, we'll still have the KCC, which is full, and also the third shift, and we'd still be hoping after school use, people could maybe take courses and that kind of thing. That's one of the things the community's said around town, that they'd love to use some of our facilities for these kinds of training things, much like we're doing with the King Career Center's construction academy, that we're using the same facility and using, so, but this is really for, that piece would be for the West Romig students.
At least during the
basically.
daytime, but in the evening
Correct.
hours, it could be
Sure.
all school,
Like,
people
yeah.
could participate in some function.
Any of our schools could do that.
Do you anticipate something similar to this at other campuses in the future in a master plan, this CVT type experience?
Well,
I know not all of them have space to even do this, but.
no, but CT&E, the Career Tech and Vocational Facility, we're asking for, the West Romig is one piece. The rest of the schools are here, and we're really looking to renovate existing space for the most part for them to be able to offer more career technical education classes at their site. So kids would be able to take them at middle school and into high school.
Which leads me more to kind of a comment, but that's somewhat, so that we're, in the future, so that we're able to do this with a structure that's built. You know, I get these anecdotal comments, you know, geez, when I went to school 50 years ago in Brooklyn, the same school, PSE, is still out there, you know, the public school. Are we building structurally these facilities so that they can adapt over a long period of time for as long as we can get, I guess, durability? Are we getting a good value for it?
Correct.
The simple answer is yes, okay, and that the facilities are being designed with structural capabilities, you know, to the current standards and codes. Of course, we don't know what that'll be 20 years from now, okay, and that the facilities are, our priorities has always been to renew and to expand the life and the investment that's already been placed in there. And I always use an anecdote too. I went to a school that was 100 years old, but it had also been renewed several times because it had good bones. And our processes and our criteria are is to build good bones for a school so that we can do that in the future.
And I guess just a quick follow-up to that is our maintenance and operation budget, so that we don't have to keep going to bond to fix up a lot of these structures, is it something in the downstream effect that we can kind of look at and see, is it adequate and can we take care of it? I mean, I know there's over 100 properties in the school district, and it's like my own house. I mean, I know my heating system is only going to last so many years. My windows may need to be replaced. My roof has to be done. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we all know from our own, but we're dealing with 101 properties of high volume use every day in and day out, maybe the weekends off. But is our maintenance and operation budget something we need to look at? for the future? Maybe it's more of a comment, maybe it's something that needs to be more further explained to me than I know.
We have $23 million in our general fund that's for the ongoing general maintenance and operations. This, I like on this to what the governor's talked about, his 5-year deferred maintenance plan. The university's looking at the same. I'm sure we do not have a separate capital projects maintenance reserve pool fund. And so because it's subject to debt reimbursement, and we've been very successful when the bonds have passed at getting 70% of the cost paid for by the state, that we believe this is a better way to approach these large projects. But we absolutely believe in preventive maintenance. In fact, we have to turn in every year a preventative maintenance program that has to be approved by the state for us to even qualify for debt reimbursement. So we believe this is a responsible approach for Anchorage School based in the debt, like I said, the debt reimbursement is a huge help to the taxpayer.
Thank you, Paul. Harriet?
Couple of questions. One, I was noticing the Service High School attendance area is about evenly divided between Midtown and South Anchorage, although it's hard to tell the density. These things are very helpful that way. Is this to assume that South High School and Eagle River High School are fairly well equipped for CTVE because they're not on this list for,
Yes,
for projects?
they were up, when they're new, they were brought in with those kinds of opportunities in the schools.
So Diamond being a similar model to the Eagle River High School, Diamond is not.
Diamond's pretty new.
The new,
Well, the Diamond was built
which is
before
now
we
open.
really moved heavily into the career technical. Eagle River was built based on the Diamond design, not the other way around. So, and so Diamond came first, and so we are moving to include them into the package because when their school was built.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Couple, just to follow up on Chris's as far as students and resources, and you mentioned as far as service and having the auditorium, it would be helpful in the CIP looking at the resources and the student needs, not just per population, but as you say, so a special ed student requires X amount of space. I mean, I think you have to do that for your long-term planning.
Right.
And I think it would be helpful for us to have that same kind of information as it's distributed throughout the municipality. So as we're looking at this. That wasn't a question, sorry.
Well, and the short term, the short answer is that at a high school level, we are we have more students than we do slots in schools. We have somewhere between, I think today we got about 40 relocatables at high schools. And even with those, the buildings are over capacity.
And that's including Eagle River High School and Bartlett, or it's just?
No, that's all, that's district-wide. That's as they're currently configured. Eagle River can obviously be built out, and that doesn't take into account that, as could Diamond conceivably as well.
But I'm just, as the resources are, where they are within the municipality, so regionally separating it out too.
I believe that
Not
6 or
overall.
7 of the 8 high schools are over capacity right now, by a little or a lot.
Including Bartlett?
No, Bartlett's the only one.
I believe Bartlett is the one that's not. East is several hundred kids over capacity. The others are between 50 and 150 to 200 over capacity. And that's a manageable, with relocatables and other tools, that's not an unreasonable situation. East is approaching unreasonable, but I think it's probably the only one that is.
And East has been finished the belt,
It's more than half done.
Slightly more than half done.
or half done.
Right.
But they do have a master plan.
Yes, and so does
And
Chugiak,
we're
and so
looking at
does
this.
Bartlett.
And as we're looking at the career technical vocational facility, that will be integrated to each of these master plans. And should make
Yes.
Absolutely.
a dent
In the long-term
relieve
renewal
some of the
costs.
service impact.
And tell them at East that we like it when they keep their pants on.
Yeah, we all like that. We all like
That
that.
was,
We were talking about that the other day. That was
the
very
best.
good.
He got lots
Leadership.
of positives from all
We're
the
pretty
time.
sure that everybody in Anchorage over the age of 35 thinks that's a really great idea.
Just knowing the kids, I think it made an impact on them.
No, it did.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a real, I would say a
It's a
very
great, it's the best
effective
use of zip ties I've
leadership.
thought of in a really, really long time.
Ernie has a question. Ernie?
Yes, it's hard to come back from that one. King Career Center. It's my understanding that King Career Center is actually about 60% of capacity. Is that correct?
It depends on the class, so if you look overall,
I have a follow-up question.
right, but we're trying to figure out why that's happening. Some of the classes are evolving, as I know you know from being on the advisory committee, trying to get new programs in that are more relevant to what kids are looking for. And some of it is scheduling, when students start and then they move or whatever, the capacity goes down. But it is a concern, and we are definitely looking at that through the instructional division to see what we can do to get more students going there, and maybe, because we've pretty much equalized it, half in the morning, half in the afternoon in these high schools because of the buses, frankly. And so we have to look at how we can make sure the program's up to capacity, as many students wanted to get there, and we have to figure out how we can afford to get them all there if they come, if the busing schedule doesn't work. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. Well, I know you're running 2. I understand there's a 3rd starting.
Third shift?
3rd shift.
Yeah, oh, it's full. That one is full. That's 9th through 12th graders, or they can ride the afternoon bus to KCC, and then their parents have to pick them up for the afternoon, at 5 o'clock, I think, 5:30 at night.
Okay. So
And
if
we
we
have it in
weren't-
summer school too. It's used for summer school too.
If you weren't operating in 3 shifts, what would that make the capacity if these were all moved into one?
Well, the reason it works for third shift is because a lot of students can't fit a 3-hour block into their morning or afternoon schedule, and so when we started doing the third shift, kids who always wanted to use it have been able to take classes they never were able to before. And so that, I think most of those students wouldn't go during the day because they really have, their other schedules are just too jam-packed with music or some AP courses, things that are only offered certain times, 1 or 2 times. So this has been a wonderful safety valve for those students, and same thing with the summer school program.
He's not done,
Right. But the point I'm getting at is it is at 60% of capacity at a shift.
That's what I've heard, but I don't have those numbers to look at it. I know some programs are full up. I mean, some of the classes, so that's what we're trying to do, is assess which classes are not.
We can get to that.
Yeah.
But what I'm stating is, community council meeting last night, that was stated as the fact.
Okay.
Chris Duck was giving a presentation
Okay.
and was talking about how it was at maximum capacity and so much that a 3rd shift was starting, and then someone immediately mentioned, well, wait a minute, I understand that it's only at 60% of capacity, so I think you need to make sure that you've got clarity on what we're addressing.
Good.
I've got Paul and Harriet. Paul?
Well, just, I guess, to back up the comments there from the superintendent, I know in my years in high school, it's been a few days, but I couldn't fit in book tech class at all during the daytime and meet my requirements for graduation, so I did take a 3rd shift night school. It didn't help me any, but it worked.
We'll check the capacity.
This is sort of a theoretical question, but if you built another King Career Center, would it be full after school? After school?
Third
like
shift.
the 3rd shift?
Oh, I have no, I think there's a lot of interest because it's 9 through 12, whereas KCC is 11 through 12, 11 through 12.
And kids are
So it's
busy.
speculative. It really depends on what students want to take and how soon they want us to take it.
At this point, the if you will, the professional vocational education community does not recommend either the expansion of KCC or the construction of another KCC. Their recommendation strongly is to build CT&E programs into the regular curriculums of the middle and high school buildings, and that's what we're reacting to with this proposal, is to expand them so that kids can take this in 1 and 2 hour blocks at a time rather than 3-hour blocks, and that we can integrate this with the curriculum so that you can start to get math and science credits, for instance, with some of the things you do in voc ed. Right now, for the most part, that doesn't happen with KCC programs. So that's what we'll be able to do if we're at the school sites rather than where we're at right now with KCC.
And
That's
the tran-
what's driving
And the
this.
transportation is a huge barrier for a lot of young people. They simply don't have, parents don't have transportation to pick them up after the third shift or to take them somewhere else, whereas if it's at their school, then they can get the courses if we have the transportation.
And I know Carol's heard this before. The shop class I took in high school was not called shop, it was scientific techniques lab. And yes, we used science and math, absolutely.
Well, we're working with the
Totally based
state on that whole thing, because it's all about highly qualified teachers, and it's all about the certification requirements of the federal and the state, and that's what we're working through on these CT&E courses with Rick and that committee.
For assembly members, if you have any further questions, get them to the school district. So we've got the questions answered before we go into the public hearing time frame. And Carol, we'll try and move this up to the beginning of the agenda.
That would be
Sure as
good.
we can, so it gets out there.
I feel your pain.
School board members, anything you guys want to say? Thanks for being here. Anything you want to tell us? Go ahead.
Training, could I please? Just, I think in comment.
If you call me Dick, yes, you can. I'm
Okay.
short of that.
Would you mind if I talk to Mr. Hall?
No, go ahead.
Thank
No,
you.
you can't talk to him.
I think just to add into the question about the King Career Center, I was just out at Chubiak High School this morning, and I was talking a little bit about the kind of tech classes and that they want to put there at the high school versus King Career Center. And he said one of the kind of new trends, I don't know if it's a phenomenon or not, but juniors and seniors really like to be in control of their own transportation, and they do have a tendency to want to drive into Anchorage on their own accord. They don't want to come back out to the high school, catch the bus, and then drive past their home in Eagle River to go back out to King Career Center. But when the price of gas started to go up so much, they found that that really was, suddenly a hindrance to that freedom. So therefore, they're really asking now that more of those vocational opportunities be closer to home. And there's just such a sense of trying to share that ability, that capacity with Eagle River High School as well, so that the kids can kind of stay closer to home, don't have to drive into Anchorage. So just kind of add that to the mix, like the superintendent said, that in terms of kids not having those big blocks of time, basically 3.5, 4 hours worth of their day to drive back and forth and take, a block section of classes at King Career Center. So it's kind of, it's a little bit of both, but as long as the price of gas kind of tends to stay where it is, then we're probably going to see more people trying to stay closer to home.
I've taken that up myself. I'm only going to work one day a week.
That's a big increase for you, Ernie.
Anything else from school board members? Thank you for being here. Those are all the questions. This work session's over with. See you on Tuesday.
If you're going to send questions to school, put them through me as well.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,